Di, thanks again for volunteering to share with us, and we look forward to understanding more of the how.
Yeah, thank
All
you,
yours.
Howard. I'm assuming you can see my screen and you can hear me.
Yes, we can. All good.
Excellent. Okay. Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to DAMA SA from Di. And I'm based in Edinburgh in Scotland. I've got no idea if my camera is working. I'm hoping my microphone is.
It is. All
Yeah,
good.
but yeah, as you can see, I'm kind of the old lady of the group. I should have retired a long time ago. I'm now 76 years of age, and why am I still here? I've got no idea. And it's about drilling down into all this incredible stuff. So I want to share with you not an intellectual, not an academic presentation. Um, I've been accused of being the theoretical person in the past, and I think a lot of it is to do with the theory. We have to understand the theory in order to know how to do it. So, a very short agenda. Um, and you can see I've got discussion and questions at the end, but I would be really happy if you would interject. And I want you to remember this is your session. Howard and DAMA SA run these sessions for you. It's for you to participate. So interrupt me if you feel like. Let's make it really collaborative. So I wanted to start with some context, then we'll go into frameworks, and then I'm going to dig down into what a process is about, and then look at an implementation framework. And because my field has been data quality, that's the one I will use. And then look at how we expand this into the other knowledge areas. So, yeah, I am passionate about data literacy. And why is that? It's because I believe that everyone in the organization has to have a consistent understanding of what it is that we do and the data terms. Everyone talks about it. Nobody really knows how to do it. Everyone thinks everyone else is doing it, so everyone claims they are doing it. And this is what Dan Ariely said about big data. And I looked at this and I thought, that's true. But the same is true about other terms that we toss about. Data profiling, data analysis, the use case, data mining, digital transformation. Do we have a consistent understanding of what these things are? And more important, how we do them. And I
Sorry, Di.
was,
Sorry,
yes,
Di. Just a question there. I mean, data profiling is an interesting one because there are so many different definitions of data profiling. Some people refer to it as almost the statistics of the data in the columns, whatever it is, and other people can refer to it almost as an assessment, like the whole adherence to rules and things like that. So it's very, and the DMBOK doesn't define exactly what it is. So there's then that room for interpretation where anybody could be right. So how do we
yeah,
get right?
we define what these things are and we teach our people in our organization. Data profiling is about understanding the statistics about the data in terms of, and I'm just, this is out my head, um, in terms of the data quality dimensions. So
So
it's about,
you are saying that data profiling for you is applying the dimensions. It's not just the number of nulls, the counts, the mins, the maxes. You're saying it's applying the dimensions as well.
most definitely applying the dimensions, but in addition, it's whatever statistics we can get out of it. So the mins, the maxes, the ranges, and so on. Thank you, Howard.
Okay.
So I'm kind of passionate about data literacy. And why is that? I think it's because reaching the end of my career, yeah, 76 years old, if the experts have trouble in understanding the terms, what about the people that we work with? So for me, education, yeah, I'm passionate about it. It's been my life for probably the last 20 years. And just by the way, it was my first career choice. I went to Teachers Training College in at Johannesburg, and I attended WITS, and I stayed in the Medhurst Hall residence, and I wanted to be a teacher. And then I got passionate about computers. So I dropped out, and so for 55 years, computers has been my career. But my passion is sharing what we know as a collective group and what I know to the people coming into the industry. And I was recently, well, just a few weeks back, um, I was reminded of Alvin Toffler and Future Shock, and his book is sitting beside me. And it just woke me up. This was published in about 1970. The illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. And it reminded me that we used to say the jobs that our children will do have not been invented yet. We can now say that the careers that we, or you, not me, that you might have not been invented yet. Because you 20-year-olds, you 30-year-olds, you 40-year-olds, you are going to have to learn and unlearn and relearn, and there might be a different career out there for you. Change is inevitable, and we have to, according to Toffler, and I believe it, I've done it all my life, we have to learn to adapt to change, to learn, unlearn, and relearn. And the changes are rapid. Do you know, when I first started in computing, we didn't have databases. We had great big tape drives and enormous disk drives, and my programs were written on paper and punched onto punch cards, and those were read into the computer system. We didn't have online systems. We didn't have databases. We didn't have the internet. So I've been very lucky in my career because I've had to learn to change. So I've had to learn KICS, the customer information, whatever it was, system, online programming, and I coded that in COBOL. So we didn't have wizards and stuff. And then we had databases and we had to learn them. And then when the internet came about, believe it or not, I can write HTML because I had to. I had to learn. So I've had this wonderful life of being able to adapt to the changes, and the changes are coming fast and furious. I mean, machine learning, artificial intelligence. But to get down to the topic, let's look at frameworks. So what is a framework? And for me, it's a structure so it's like a skeleton or an architectural drawing that guides the building of something into something useful. But I think for me, the best definition comes from the Data Governance Institute. They help us organize how we think about things, and particularly things that are complicated or ambiguous, or they're complex. They guide us to say, this is the scope of my topic, and they help us understand if we leave something out and know that we have left it out. So let's look at a couple of the frameworks that we're familiar with. And yay, John Zachman, my favorite framework of all time. The what, how, where, who, when, and why. And, you know, I've been lucky enough to meet John Zachman on several occasions, attend his workshops, attend some training courses in Cape Town, in fact. But the way I remember him, I wonder if any of you remember this. Probably not. It's called an overhead projector.
Yeah.
And John Zachman had when I first met him, or first attended a presentation, he had one slide, and it was a John Zachman framework, and he put it up, and he would be in an audience of maybe 200, 300 people, and he'd say, there are 6 columns: what, how, where, who, when, and why. You don't need to add any more. And he'd take the slide off the overhead thing, and then he'd put it back on again. He said, and there are 6 rows, and you don't have to add any more. And he'd take it off, and he'd put it back, one slide, and he would talk for an hour. For me, it's a framework for thinking. What am I doing? How am I going to do it? Where am I going to do it? When? Who is involved? And why am I doing this anyway? So a great framework that I use all the time, not for the design of systems, I don't do that anymore, but just to guide my thinking, that I always ask these 6 questions. And I think you guys have the, what, 5 wives and a husband or something? Yeah, that
That
always
is correct.
amuses me. Yeah.
It actually came from John.
Oh, did it?
Yeah. He
Oh,
presented
really?
at the Reserve Bank. Yeah.
Okay, I haven't heard that from John. Yeah. And then we've got the Plan, Do, Check, Act framework. And for implementation, we're really focusing on the do and the check and the act. And this is Stuart Deming. So if we're thinking about the CDMP fundamentals, you should know all about Stuart and Deming and the PDCA framework. And just I mean, I like this kind of extension to that framework, at the observe step. And why do I like this framework? And it's really because it uses the verbs, the doing words. And so verbs indicate to me things that I'm going to do, and I want to drill down into how I'm going to do it. So I think this extension is called the OPDCA. And sometimes you might see adjust instead of act. And then, of course, we have our DAMA DIMBOK frameworks. And these are the 2 that we commonly see. They're obviously in the book, and there are several more in the book. So the knowledge areas, from data architecture around to data quality with data governance in the middle. And for me, part of the framework is the generic context diagram. So the what that we have to manage when we're managing data. And then, Howard, thank you. I took a screenshot a few months ago, and I loved this. But it was framework definitions, but I loved it because you had aligned it to the John Zachman framework. So what it is, what, how, where, who, when, and why. And I think the definition I kind of like is effective services. So it's a conceptual model for implementing strategy or a plan, and it guides the steps involved in the implementation processes and focuses on the specific actions, the how-to of implementation. So if I want to move to a framework for implementation of DAMA DIMBOK, then I wanted to understand what I mean by implementation. So it's about a definition that came from the Center for Effective Services, and I'm not sure if that's the same effective services as you referenced, Howard?
No, it's different.
Different, okay, yeah. I did have a look for your definition. So the carrying out of planned activities that aim to turn evidence and ideas into policies and practices that work for people in the real world. And that's what it's about. The people actually doing the work, putting a plan into real action. So the how as well as the what, as well as the what.
It is hot.
It is hard. So what could the DAMA DIMBOK implementation framework look like? And before I get there, it's about the how. And I believe the how is about processes. So if I look at the anatomy of a process and how cars are made, and Alvin Toffler, he said that we would notice that things would be distributed. So the pieces of a car would come from different places. So how are cars made? The components, the body, the painting, putting the engine together, and so on. So what does that look like in real life? And I had a wonderful colleague, Nigel Holloway, one of the architects in a large financial services organization, and he loved the analogies of recipes. So if I look at making breakfast, I've got some inputs and outputs, and then I can break that down into preparation, the cooking and the serving, and then how do I do the cooking? Well, I cook the bacon, I cook the eggs, I make the toast, I fry the potatoes. And for each one of these, we can drill down to the very lowest level of detail. So make breakfast is a process. Prepare ingredients, cook ingredients, and serve are the steps. And then the activities, the cook, and so on. So what I have to understand to follow this process, well, I've got to understand the language of the process. So what does breakfast mean anyway? And what is bacon and what are potatoes? And what does cook mean? So the language of the process is very important if I really want to get out some decent fried potatoes. So if I drill this process down, I looked at a kind of conceptual model of processes, and I would really be interested in your input here because it's conceptual. It's not a logical model of a process. So I've got a process, and right at the top, I've got the why. So again, my thinking is aligning us to the John Sackman framework. What do we want to achieve? And then the trigger, what initiates this process? And then the process owner is at the head of finance, the head of manufacturer. So the who. And then the process type, is it planning, is it operational? And that gives me a hint of the where. So processes have inputs and outputs. Processes consist of process steps. And process steps, I think, may have governance checkpoints and associated metrics. And then we get down to the activities. And activities require skills, and the skills come from roles. Activities might require tools, and activities might produce metadata. Inputs to activities have got policy, standards, guidelines, checklists, and templates. Processes are a lot of work. And a lot of work, a lot of documentation that people really don't want to read about or see. What they want to know is how to do it. So let's have drill down a little bit and see how this kind of fits into my implementation framework. So a different view of DAMA DIMBOK and the wheel. So we've got the data management knowledge areas, and yeah, I was always confused as to why big data and data science was not a knowledge area and where it fitted. So I've kind of put it into the knowledge areas. And then I've taken the generic context diagram and the contents of this big DAMA DIMBOK book. And these are the things that we want to consider. So this is the foundation of the implementation framework. And then we say, okay, let's take this to a level of something real. So data quality. So that segment on the DAMA DIMBOK wheel. And we look at the actual processes that we need to perform. And then we look at our process model, and then we drill down to what are the things we need to have to execute these processes. And these things, I think, are the policies, the standards, the guidelines, the checklists, and the templates. So these are the things that beginners coming into data profiling, they don't need to read the whole process, but they have to know what to do and how to do it. So if data quality, we can say, well, what is data quality? How do we achieve it? Where is it applied? Who's involved? Why is it important anyway? Lots of questions we can ask about it. And for me, that's part of the planning piece, not part of the implementation piece. And if I look at what DAMA DIMBOK tells me are the activities, define high quality data, define a data quality strategy, identify critical data and business rules, and so on. So these are the activities. And these are, but they're not necessarily the processes that I want to implement. So what are the operational or the implementation processes? And I mean, these are what I consider. We profile the data, so that could be assessment. We obtain requirements, we measure, we prevent, and we correct, we monitor, and we manage data quality issues. Any thoughts from anyone, or are there any processes, implementation processes that you see that might be missing from this?
Yeah, Di, I find that interesting in terms of, can you see there that the profile data is actually coming before your quality requirements and before you're measuring the data. So when you do the quality requirements, that's what I understand to be the dimension definitions. So that profile talks purely about the the statistical structure of the data and not the application on the quality requirements. So that is sort of where we get this terminology funny coming out in
Oh,
terms of exactly what we mean by profile.
okay. Yeah, I think, yeah. So uh, profiling the data is normally when, well, in my past life, where we've gone in and we've tried to understand the state of the data, a very quick exercise where we run the
Yeah.
data typically through a tool. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's yeah. So it's a nice sort of it's helpful to present that to the stewards when asking them about what their requirements are. Especially they say, oh, they want completeness of 100%, but the data is only 50% complete.
Yes. Yeah. Mm. Anyway, so the sequence of these, very often it's useful to go in and do this quick assessment, and almost grab the business's attention that this is the state of your data right now, not according to the rules that you might
Yeah.
have, but it's almost to allay their fears or make them fearful about the state of their data.
Right.
Mm.
And I don't know if you've seen or if you've seen Tom Redman's Friday afternoon assessment, where he just presents the top 200 records and asks the business people, is this row correct? Yes or no? He doesn't even get involved in any formal analysis or definition, and then just creates a numeric value or quantity of what's correct and what's not correct, and then uses that to and applies the rule of thumb, or that rule of 1 to 10, to actually get a quantum or a quantitative assessment on the quality of the data.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, I'll just hold that thought and move on if I
Okay,
may.
sure.
Okay, so if we look at these activities, it's about, so how do we do it? The book doesn't tell us how we profile the data, how we analyze the profiling results, how we get the requirements, how we measure, how we correct, how we monitor, how we manage. And these are the challenges I think that face us. So all of these things have to be clearly defined in the processes. How do we do this? So if I have a look at how do we profile and analyze the data? So typically the tool does it for us, doesn't it? But I want you to imagine looking at a spreadsheet of data and understanding how you would do it. So how do we do it? So we consider the data quality dimensions. We look at the data elements by their type. So we look at dates, we look at codes, we look at names, we look at addresses, we look at values, we look at numbers or quantities. We look for potential rules. We look across data elements. So we look for, does the date of birth look consistent with the ID number? And we look across the record. But how do we do that? Uh, and the way I've always done it is I've had it, well, I don't need the checklist now, but I've had a checklist. And that's the way we teach our newcomers how to do it. And I was thinking about this this morning, and I thought, I've got to go to all this detail in defining the process to come up with a checklist. Now I've got to take everything out of my head about how I do it. And it kind of triggered, is that what artificial intelligence is about? we have to understand how we do things in order to enable the computer to do it for us. But just to get this down on paper, on a checklist, what does the checklist help us with? If each of our data analysts is looking at the data in a consistent way, then that should achieve consistent outcomes for us. And that's got to be good for the organization. And I sometimes wish, oh, could I have another 10 years so that I can also get into this artificial intelligence and machine learning.
John
So
Zachman's still going. John Zachman's still going.
he
You've
sure
got another 10
is.
years.
And he's definitely older than I am.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Okay. So how do we analyze the data? The profiling, yeah, I think we should teach our people how to profile before we give them the tools, and we can give them a checklist to do that. Okay, and then how do we report the profiling results? So how do we put together that presentation or that report? And just some of the things, we consider the dimensions, we show our prioritized results. Maybe our profiling has identified rules, so we show them and for confirmation. Results for each data element, so maybe in terms of completeness, consistency, depending on what the data item is. Results across data elements, and then maybe results at data group level. So we've got address line 1, address line 2, address line 3, and postal code. We can show results for each one of these, but none of them is worth anything if the whole address is not any good. So data group level, and then maybe at record level, is this record any good? And how do we do that? Well, we've done it before. We can put a template together to assist our novices, our beginners, to do it properly. And so we've done the thinking. We just have to put that down and kind of give it to them kind of canned. So how do we measure the data? So we go through the same process.
Sorry,
How do
Di.
we?
Sorry,
Yes.
sorry, Di. Could I ask you a question on the previous one? Now, you asked for some input previously, but I like to use that SciPoc approach, that suppliers, inputs, processes, outputs, consumers, and I like to almost keep my attention to the output and then make sure that the process defines what that output needs, achieves the output, and compare the output to a standard that is of good quality. So that to me has always been helpful in defining my process, so that I know that I'm going to achieve consistent results and consistent outputs that I'd like to do. So how do you, is that, I mean, I can see you talking about different results and showing it, but you don't really highlight an output or saying this is what I'm trying, this is my goal, this is my output.
Okay, if I have a look at my process model, the process, and it could be the process steps that have the inputs and outputs. But remember, this was a conceptual model. So associated with the inputs and outputs, we could have the critical success factors of each of these. So expand this process model to cater for what it is that you're looking for, Howard?
Okay. Happy?
Yeah. so that we
Thank you.
define it up front what what the consistent outcome is, what the success criteria are.
Right.
Yeah. So how do we measure the data? Well, it's the same process. We have to go through all of the steps. So identifying the business rules, defining the business rules, measuring the data, analyzing the measurement results, and reporting the measurement results. And again, for that, we need to produce we have to know what to do and how to do it and define those checklists, because nobody is going to read all of the process documentation. How do we prevent data quality issues? So introducing some guidelines perhaps about root cause analysis, standards for root cause analysis, the fishbone diagram, Dr. Ishikawa, and teaching the techniques to ensure that we can prevent data quality issues. And each one of the steps in the process, we have to drill down in our process model. I want to now move to kind of the left. Sorry, I lost myself there. I want to look at the model and look at policies, templates, checklists, guidelines, and so on. So what policies apply to the data? So how do we use the policies? So is there a data quality policy? Is there a data privacy policy that affects to correcting the data? So if we've modeled that and we've defined it in the process and we've linked it to the activities and included them in the checklists, then we should be fine. And then the standards. So what standards are required to perform the process? So the standard might be, how do we define rules? Or if it's in data architecture or data modeling, how do we define our data entities? How do we describe them? How do we describe the data elements? And then there are the guidelines. So what's the difference between standards and guidelines? For me, standard is a must, and guideline is a should or a could. Anybody got any thoughts on the difference between standards and guidelines?
Yeah, the way I see them, guidelines is almost tips and tricks, to use a simple reference. Tips and tricks in terms of guiding you in terms of how to achieve the best outcome.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah, that's a great way of doing it. It's, you know, I have always followed Ronald Ross on business rules, and
Yes.
some of his documents are, for me, are guidelines on how we should define our business rules. Yeah. And then so checklists, what checklists are required to execute the process. And as you know, when I deliver a training course, I have probably a 40-line checklist on everything that I do. And I fill it in every time I deliver a training course. And I kind of, it's a habit. I kind of like to tick the things off. So I print out the checklist and I tick things off. Okay, I've put the do not disturb notice on my door. I've silenced my mobile. It's trivial stuff, but very important for me to ensure that I do everything I should do. And no, Howard, it's not the old timers disease.
I was actually
It's
reading a book on Caster Semenya. Remember Caster Semenya, the fantastic athlete, the South African athlete, and she went through a process of preparing for the 800 meter, and she went through the standard recipe of getting herself to the starting line. And it was fascinating. I see it's similar to what you're suggesting in terms of your checklist.
yeah, and it kind of psychs me up as well, and I
Yeah,
can
yeah,
see the checklist as psyching up the just enabling the newbies into our profession to do it better and to do
yeah.
it consistently.
It was interesting with Caster Semenya, she actually, as part of a checklist, that when she was warming up for the 800 meter, there was a level of psyching out the competitors. So she would use because she was so fast in certain areas, she would use this checklist to um, work with the other people running the race. So that was part of her system as well.
Well, Howard, funny you say that. When I'm running a training course, I stalk them. Yeah, I look them
Oh,
up on
right,
LinkedIn and Google,
right,
and
right.
it's so that I know who my audience is.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah. Important.
Very important. Yeah. So it's the same as what she was doing.
Okay.
So our checklist, and then our templates, and what templates do we require for presentations, for presentations to our stakeholders, for presentations to our whoever, for reports, and
Sorry,
why do
Di.
we?
Sorry, Di.
Yes.
Well, I think we've lost your video. I'm not sure if I'm the only one who can't see it. It's not critical at the moment, but uh,
Oh, okay. Well, let me just see. I'll escape from here.
not.
Okay, I'm going to.
You're
Oh
going to
no.
send me the link.
Okay, so okay, I'm going to stop sharing and share again. Data quality frameworks. So slideshow from. Can you see it now, everybody?
I can see your deck. It's just your video. Your camera's off. The slides are on, but the camera's off, as Mark said. But not to worry.
Okay, my camera is giving me grief.
Okay, okay.
I'm
It's
sorry
not
about that.
following the checklist. It's not following the
Yeah, I'm
checklist.
not following the checklist. Yeah, yeah. So templates for reporting, for presentations, and when we've done them, then we can improve on them. And so the template, it's a PowerPoint template, a Word document template. It's got the agenda, it's got the contents, and it's got suggested content because we know what has to go into each section. So we're providing guidelines to our people to produce consistent reports and presentations.
Sorry, Di.
Yes.
Um, Now, one of the things I like to do, and if you need to move on, that I'm happy with that. But it's almost like a scorecard. So how do we measure that activity has produced the right results? So, for example, a data model, it may look nice, but it's script. It has scope creep. So, how do you bring in the scorecard of that activity?
Okay, I would have maybe that's another kind of document. So if you have a look at process state, we've got governance, checkpoints, and metrics. So if we're producing a data model, then that might be the governance checkpoint, and the metrics might be a scorecard of what are the criteria for a good data model. So I've created templates that say, or not templates, checklists, and that we can score to say, is every entity relevant? Are there any redundant elements? Are the entities named appropriately, and so on? Does that help, Howard?
So what I like to do, and this is the trick that I learned from Steve Hoberman, is that he uses the scorecard as he basically trains the people on his scorecard to produce the right model. So it's like a guideline, but it's telling people what is right.
Yeah, exactly. So that's a checklist. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's actually has a set of rules and measures and things like that. So it's I mean, yeah, so just a different view on it, but it could be considered to be your checklist, but it almost has a measurement so that when we are reviewing it, so it's almost that combination of the metric and the checklist. It's that
Okay.
comes together.
Well, let's think about what we could call that. Um,
We
and
call it we call it basically the output scorecard, so that when data governance reviews any, or when they build a procedure to produce any output, there's a corresponding scorecard that we will train the people to achieve 100%. That's what our goal is
excellent.
to yeah.
That sounds great. An output scorecard. I've written that
Yeah.
down, and I've got a slide coming up. Yeah, I think I'll have to speed up a little bit, don't I?
Okay. Sorry.
No, it's okay. 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 Let me just templates. Oh, okay. So if we go down now the left-hand side, we've looked at activities and processes. I purposely left out goals and principles and essential concepts because for me, they're not necessarily part of the implementation part of our framework. So the tools and techniques, so we've got them in the model. So we've got activities might require a tool, and for that tool, we might have to associate policy standards, guidelines, checklists, templates. Implementation guidelines, that in fact is the whole of the process model. And this is a model that I would really like us to grow or expand or refine. And then the links to other knowledge areas, which I think is very, very important. So I've included metadata in the model because metadata is kind of the new black dress. You know, it's the thing. It's the thing that excites me, kind of after AI and ML. Such exciting stuff, and linked to every knowledge area. So what other knowledge areas are affected by data quality? And I've just listed metadata and security, but data modeling and design, data integration, data
Master
warehousing,
data. Master data
master
is a big,
data. Yeah,
yeah.
of course. Yeah. Um, Data operations and support, where we do our testing. That's where we're testing the rules that we've defined in modeling and architecture, that will ensure that will contribute to data quality. So the links to, because this framework, it's not a flat structure, this DAMA DIMBOK. So maybe just a couple of examples of metadata associated with data quality, our targets, our thresholds, our rules, our measurement results. Anybody think of any other bits of metadata that data quality produces?
Yeah, all the sort of remediation actions and what do we have to do need to come in there as well. So what did we do and what was the outcome of the changes that we made? So
Yeah,
any data quality issue has to be linked to the actions taken and then the resolution thereof.
yeah, excellent. So that whole data issue resolution and linking to remediation, so and to preventative actions, root cause analysis, all of that good stuff.
Now, Di, another interesting point, and I don't want to take you too far off, but it's interesting that metadata is actually the data model for data quality, right? I mean, it's a
Yes, it is. Yeah, 100. I mean, it's Howard, this is just such exciting stuff, I think. I mean, when you talk about it, and so the metadata model for data quality is, yeah, it's, yeah, just so exciting.
Yeah,
And somebody's metadata is somebody else's data.
yeah.
Yeah,
Depends on your, 100%.
depends on your perspective. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so then this other topic that appears in this wonderful big book, data ethics. So how can we link that in our framework? And I think maybe through policies. Anybody, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's a very important one when we look at accessibility, Di, is that, if some people don't have access to the data, then they are left in a position of weakness. They're in a position of weakness, especially in boardroom discussions. They call it data bullying, where some people have an advantage of the insight on the data and others don't, and that can be misused.
Yeah, excellent. And then change management. So change management is about people and what it is that they're doing and what is affecting their job. So we've got process owners and we've got the roles that are executing the activities. So what kind of change management might we want to apply to them? And it might be about the policies, the standards, the guidelines, the checklists, and the templates. And then there's education. So education is about the roles, the people, and the skills that they have. And do they have the right skills to perform a specific activity? And so they might need education around things such as the policies, the standards, the guidelines, the checklists, and the templates. And then there's the structures and roles. So in our process model, we've modeled the roles so we can fit them into that structure. So it might be the process owner, it might be the data steward, it might be the data owner, it might be
The application developer or
the developer. Yes, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So whoever it is and how they fit into that data management or data quality organization structure.
And then also our most important would be the consumer.
Yes, yeah, yeah. So and our producers.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, because the producers that will be involved in creating all of this stuff.
Yeah.
And then governance and metrics. So we've got data governance at the heart of our DAMA DIMBOK wheel. So data governance is checking on that we're doing it right. So and I've linked them to process steps, but it could be linked to the process itself. Is there a governance checkpoint here? And what is the metric? So if it's the definition of business rules, if that happens to be a governance checkpoint, is has the standard been complied with? Are the rules defined in the appropriate way? And I think this goes back to your output scorecard, Howard.
Mm.
So I think I can maybe mix that in there.
Yeah, I suppose there's this combination of those metrics that governance is applying is almost to say how effective was the procedure conducted and did it meet the requirements. So that's sort of where I differ on the scorecard, is measuring the output, and the governance could be measuring the process. So if we look at the DMMA, it's all about the optimization, effective and efficiency of the process. So that's where one has to be clear in terms of what those metrics are looking at.
Yeah, okay. So then implementation in a nutshell is it's about defining that whole process to, as John Sackman would say, to an excruciating level of detail. So defining it excruciating. Yeah. And then pulling out of that the things that will help the people that have to execute or implement that process, which I think are the policies, the standards, the guidelines, the checklists, and the templates, but we can discuss. So we develop the whole process to understand the what and the how, and using whatever skills we have, and to develop the guidelines that will help other people execute that process. So how can we apply this framework to other data management areas? And I think it's really about defining the processes and then developing the policies, the standards, the guidelines, the checklists, and the templates. And then it's the same framework for every other data management knowledge area. So just a reminder about what is a framework. And this for me is my latest thinking on a framework for implementation for data quality management. And we change one block and we can apply it to other data management areas. But it's not perfect, is it? What's missing? So this is a work in progress. And these are some of the things that I think are missing. So some generic stuff, like how do we initiate the process and review it and improve it? This AAR, the after action review. Thank you, Howard, for that one. I really like that one. Yeah. Because it's not just about reviewing at the end, the post-project review, it's after an action. And you know, when I used to work, we used to have a debriefs, and after every presentation or every customer interaction, we would have a debrief. So that was our after action review. And then communicating, and then the process model itself. I mean, it's in its early stages. What about key result areas and what else? So it's a work in progress, and I'd like to make it better. And so how can we improve this? And I may be old, but I'm not done yet.
Fantastic.
I still feel, thank you, Howard. I've got a lot to offer. And I want to ask you for your help. What can you contribute? So, are you ready to accept change? Are you ready to adapt to change? And are you ready to make the change to make this better? So, I think that's me. I'm done. Thank you, everyone. This is my email address if you'd like to interact with me, if you'd like to discuss the framework. I would be more than happy. I just want to say before I kind of almost sign off, if I can get back to where we are and try and get my camera on again. I want to thank DAMA SA and particularly Howard and his team for the huge amount of work that they put into running DAMA SA. It's a great effort, and I hope it's valued by all of you as much as it is by me. I know how much time it takes to do this stuff. Thank you, Howard.
Thank you, Di. Di, thank you very much for a lovely presentation, and thanks for helping us. It's certainly presentations like this make it a lot easier for us, and of course we're learning all the time. So that's the lovely thing. Mark, any comments, questions from your side?
Yeah, I wanted to express my thanks to both Diana, excuse me, Diana, and to you, Howard, and the team, Howard, Veronica, Debbie, for doing what you do. I mean, it's part of the reason I tune in. I don't know. It's valuable for the community. I learn something every day that I can attend. I should be on the bus going to work now, but it's dark now, right? This time of year on this and this, so it's anyway. It's good for sharpening my saw, to quote Mr. Covey. So I do appreciate what you're doing. Thank you
very much. Thanks, guys. Thanks for your feedback. I think that's very helpful.
Thank you, Mark.
Thanks.
And I hope I'm in such cheerful mood with respect to data. I mean, I've mentioned this to Howard. The data industrial complex is getting me down.
Yeah.
Like, how many data catalog vendors do we need? How many different kinds of databases? I mean, when back when we had COBOL, Kix, ISAM, DB2, then Oracle, then life was good then. Now, I don't know. I'm not. It's not as much fun.
Yeah, you're right. There's all the different permutations, and we'll never be able to put it back into a single box again, can we?
No way, it's out. It's you see those Matt Turk big data landscape things on LinkedIn. I just want to. I used to like those things, those landscape diagrams. Here's all the vendors, all the products. I used to like them. I don't like them anymore. It's too much. It's the paradox of choice. You know that half those companies are going to disappear in the next year as they're consumed by other companies, or they simply run out of startup cash and go out of business.
Yeah.
I mean, and then if the company actually does have a good idea, then Microsoft or Google will buy them. So they disappear anyway. So,
yeah. They eat it
I'm
up.
ranting. I'll stop now.
No problem. Di said I really like your last slide in terms of what's next, and for me the two challenges are the framework that links all of the domains together. So what's the data management implementation framework? And I like differentiating between a high level framework like the DMBOK. That's great, but it doesn't show me how to coordinate and synchronize data quality, reference data, master data, and we sort of know that we must start off with the quality, and then it helps us decide whether we need to improve the data modeling or the reference and master and things like that. So that's a really nice area of implementation framework, that we coordinate all of the knowledge managements and we get it to flow together. Now, the DMBox version 2 slightly touches on it with lifecycle management, but it then has the foundation and the governance that don't give you the sequence. So you're still left wondering, well, how do I implement data management, and not just data quality or these areas? How do they feed into each other and connect to each other? So we need our processes to go not just within one domain. They've got to have inter-domain dependencies and prerequisites and post and things like that. So it's that whole shape that has to come together.
Well, Howard, the John Zachman framework looks like a flat thing: what, how, where, who, when, and why.
Yeah,
six rows. It's not, because
agreed.
What interacts with how and with where and who. It's multidimensional, and that's what we have to understand about our DAMA DMBOK framework.
Yeah, and then the other thing that I'm finding very fascinating is the concept of knowledge management. Now, a lot of what you're presenting here is bringing out the tacit knowledge that a lot of our authorities or thought leaders have. Of course, they've converted it into books where possible, but a lot of the times within an organization, we need to work on the knowledge management, which is all of the processes, the checklists, the guidelines. All of that is converting tacit to explicit.
Yeah, and that's what I fear for. I grew up with a load of wonderful IT people, and they're gone. They've retired, and their knowledge is gone.
We got to make sure that Mark doesn't jump out too quickly.
Yeah.
75,
The whole place is going to stop working in 2038 anyway, because that's when the 32-bit integer overflows. Right.
Okay.
So any computer system that's been that's based on Unix, that's been calculating dates since 1970 stops working in February of 2038. So plan for retirement.
So we got another Y2K disaster.
And it's way bigger. You know how many computers are on the planet now since the year 2000? I mean, I will not be in a car, on a train, on a bus, in a plane. I will be on the ground, on my feet.
On your bicycle.
Or maybe on my bike, my analog bicycle. I don't even trust my e-bike to work anymore.
Yeah. That's for sure.
Oh, well.
Fantastic. Di, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Happy New Year, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful New Year and a wonderful Christmas. We really enjoyed your presentation, Di. Thank you.
Great.
Keep going.
I will send Debbie the presentations for distribution.
Thank you very much. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks. Over and out, everybody. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.